I thought I had everything I wanted. At 24, I was engaged to a guy I'd been with for 6 years. He was 25, and I believed we were in love. We got engaged in April 2024, and everything seemed perfect. I was thrilled, planning our wedding for next May. A romantic anniversary date, exactly when we first met. I had this dream of a perfect love story, but looking back, it feels like a joke. How did I miss all the signs? The wedding planning began in July. I remember the joy of choosing a light blue and white theme, imagining how beautiful it would be for a spring wedding. I stayed up late, making mood boards on Pinterest, researching venues, caterers, and florists, pouring my heart into every little detail. But my fiancé? He barely showed interest. His replies to my excited messages were short and indifferent. Looks good, or just a simple, okay. I thought he was just letting me have my dream wedding, but the truth was, he simply didn't care. I should have realized that then, but I was blinded by my own fantasies. There was something else I ignored, the bond between my fiancé and his mother. He was her only child, and their relationship was intense. He called her every day, sometimes multiple times, about everything from what car to buy to what we should have for dinner. I thought it was sweet at first, a sign that he cared about family. But over time, it became clear that his mother's opinion would always come first. I didn't realize how deep this went until it was far too late. A couple of weeks ago, I went wedding dress shopping with my mom and sister. It was supposed to be a magical day, one of those memories you hold on to forever. We went from shop to shop, trying on countless dresses, until finally, I found it. The dress. It was beautiful, elegant, and made me feel like a princess. It needed a few adjustments, but I knew it was perfect. Tears welled up in my eyes as I stood in front of the mirror, my mom and sister beaming at me. For a moment, everything was exactly as I had dreamed. I was so happy that I immediately sent photos of the dress to my fiancé. He said it looked beautiful, and for a brief time, I felt like I was on top of the world. But that didn't last long. I didn't realize then that he'd rushed to show those pictures to his mom, almost like a child wanting praise for something he'd done well. That's when everything started to fall apart. His mother called me that day. I was still out with my mom and sister, so I didn't answer. I figured she might be excited about the dress and I'd just call her back later. When I got home, I found her waiting for me, sitting in my living room like she owned the place. She must have used the spare key we'd given her for emergencies. The smile I had worn all day vanished the moment I saw her face. She was furious. She stood up as soon as I walked in, her voice rising before I even had the chance to put down my purse. She accused me of lying to her, of breaking a promise I had never made. She claimed that I had agreed to wear her old wedding dress. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. I had never promised to wear her dress, not once. All I could think was, where is my fiancé? Why isn't he here to back me up? I felt cornered, attacked in my own home, and the person I thought would stand by my side was nowhere to be found. I turned and walked away, retreating to my room like a scolded child. Even with the door closed, I could hear her shouting. I waited for what felt like forever until I finally heard the front door slam shut. Moments later, my fiancé walked in. He looked at me and asked what had happened, as if he hadn't heard the yelling from wherever he had been hiding. I tried to explain, still shaken by the confrontation, hoping he would comfort me. But instead, he defended her. He said his mother was hurt because I had supposedly promised years ago to wear her dress. I couldn't believe it. Maybe 6 years ago I had said something polite about her dress, but to promise I'd wear it? No way. But my fiancé kept insisting, saying that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I went to bed that night feeling more alone than I had ever felt, even with him lying right beside me. I started to see the cracks in our relationship, cracks I had ignored for years. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages from his mother. Each one was like a stab to the heart. She called me a liar, said I wasn't good enough for her son, and accused me of trying to drive a wedge between them. I showed my fiancé the messages, hoping he would finally see what was happening. But instead, he shrugged it off, saying, "She's just hurt." That was it for me. It wasn't about the dress anymore. It was about respect. It was about standing up for myself. And I realized that the man I was supposed to marry would never do that for me. He would always choose his mother over me. I tried to explain that this was our wedding, our day, not his mother's. I wanted to feel beautiful in my own dress, but he just didn't get it. He kept asking why I couldn't do this one thing for her, as if I hadn't already sacrificed enough for his family. The more we talked, the more I realized that this problem went beyond the dress. I remembered all the times he had put his mother's needs before mine, all the times he had valued her opinion over ours. How had I not seen it? I suggested compromises. Maybe I could wear a piece of jewelry from her wedding, or add some lace from her dress to my veil. But no. It was all or nothing for them. Either I wore the entire dress, or I was an ungrateful liar. The messages from his mother didn't stop. They became nastier, more personal, and each time I showed them to my fiancé, he did nothing. He seemed to agree with her more and more. I started to feel like I was losing myself in this battle, constantly trying to defend my right to have a say in my own wedding. I wasn't being unreasonable. I just wanted to wear my own dress on my wedding day. But they acted like I was tearing the family apart. I decided it was time to talk seriously with my fiancé. I needed him to understand where I was coming from, that I wanted to marry him, not his entire family. When I finally got him to listen, he told me that the wedding was also for our parents, not just for us. He couldn't see why I wouldn't just go along with what his mother wanted. When I reminded him that he had originally said my dress was beautiful, he admitted that he had only said that because he thought it's what I wanted to hear. He actually thought it was ugly. I was stunned. I tried to be the bigger person, to find another compromise. I offered to wear something else of his mother's, but again, it wasn't enough. He said I should be grateful his mother even offered her dress, as if she was doing me a favor. I couldn't take it anymore. I asked him if he was marrying me or his mother. He didn't like that. He started yelling, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing. I stormed out, called my mom, and poured my heart out to her. She was furious. She couldn't believe how they were treating me. When I went back to our house, my fiancé was gone. He had run off to his mother's house, leaving me a text saying he'd stay there until I came to my senses. But I had come to my senses. I was done. I couldn't marry a man who would never put me first. I called off the wedding. The next day, his mother called, saying we needed to talk. Foolishly, I agreed, hoping we could find some middle ground. But she started accusing me again, saying I had gone back on my word, that I was hurting her son. She even said she was willing to forgive me if I wore her dress. I shut that down immediately. I told her it was my day, and I would wear what I wanted. She lost it, calling me a liar, saying I was unworthy, and even calling me a witch. I hung up and blocked her number. I was done trying to please her. That night, my fiancé texted me, saying it wasn't fair for me to yell at his mother. He still didn't get it. I told him we needed to talk in person, but he refused, saying he'd come when I calmed down. I took off my engagement ring and set it on the nightstand. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider that this engagement might not end in a wedding. When my fiancé finally showed up, I didn't waste a second. I told him how hurt and angry I was, how he and his mother had tried to pressure me into wearing that hideous dress. He tried to interrupt, but I didn't let him. I told him this was about more than just a dress. It was about him being willing to throw away our relationship over his mother's wishes. He started yelling, saying I was planning to cancel the whole wedding over something so small. But it wasn't small. It was about respect. Right on cue, he tried to storm out again, but I followed him. I wasn't going to let him run away this time. That's when it happened. He spun around and slapped me. I stood there, stunned, as he stormed out of the house, running back to his mother. The sound of that slap echoed in my ears long after he was gone. I couldn't believe it had come to this. The man I thought I loved had raised his hand to me, all because of his mother. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. This wasn't love. This wasn't a partnership. This was abuse. I called my sister and she came over immediately. She helped me pack a bag, and I left. There was no way I could stay in that house another night. I texted him, telling him it was over. No discussion. No second chances. He had shown his true colors, and they were uglier than his mother's old dress. The next morning, I went to the police station and filed for a restraining order. It was both empowering and heartbreaking. As for the wedding, I decided to turn lemons into lemonade. I used the venue to throw an early birthday party for myself, and instead of canceling the honeymoon trip, I took my sister. At least I knew she would always have my back. I also made the mistake of unblocking my ex and his mother, just to see if they had anything to say. His mother bombarded me with nasty messages almost immediately, calling me a gold digger, saying I was never good enough for her precious son. I muted them both. I sent one final text to my ex, officially ending things and telling him exactly what I thought of him. He responded with excuses, begging for forgiveness, but you don't get to slap me and then ask for a second chance. I've moved on. I'm focusing on myself, on my own happiness. I'm not ready to date again, and that's okay. I've started therapy, and it's helping me work through everything. When I do start dating again, I'll know what to look out for. I won't ignore the red flags, and you can bet I'll pay close attention to how any potential partner treats their family, and me. I've learned a lot from this experience. Most importantly, I've learned that I deserve better. I deserve someone who will stand by my side, who will put me first, and who will respect me. I won't settle for anything less.